Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Vinyl Junkie Record Shop. My name is Mike. It's been a hot minute since I've done a video, probably since Record Store Day. I've been sitting on all kinds of things that I've picked up over the last probably couple of months that I've been wanting to showcase and just haven't had a chance to get around and do a video. So I figured today I've got some time I would do one. I'm going to try to make this fairly quick. My co-host Sammy decided he wanted to get up here and he might get in the shot now and then. You might hear his little feetsies on the floor. So I want to show, I've got some, I'm going to show some gems that I think I've picked up over the last couple months or so. I'm going to start with some Illinois, Chicagoland-based power pop gems, and then some classic rock and hard rock. I'll call them gems for the sake of, they might not be worth a whole lot, but they're really good records that you don't see a whole lot out in the wild. I consider that a gem find when I'm going out and doing a dig. So let's get started. The first one I'm going to show is, this is a band that I had seen their albums on some other videos, but back in the day, I was not familiar with them. But a band that was really kind of on the precipice of really breaking big and just didn't quite do it. They were based out of the Chicago area, and they played a power pop sound that was probably most similar to Cheap Trick, if you had to draw a direct comparison, even though that's kind of generic. I mean, every power pop band that's ever made an album probably sounds a little bit like Cheap Trick. But this was off-Broadway, and they also had the little USA kind of on the little logo there, with the album on. I believe this was their second release. There's the band back there. I don't know how to authenticate it, but I'm guessing unless someone really wanted to go to the trouble of making it look completely fake, because again, like I said, this wasn't like a legendary band that this album would be worth lots of dollars if it wasn't so. But on the back, above each band member there is a different looking signature. I don't know how well you can really see that with this plastic cover on there, but I believe this album was probably autographed from someone who owned it in the Midwest area. They were signed to Atlantic Records. I can get the record out and show. A lot of people like to just show the label, but I mean we've all seen this classic Atlantic Records label, so I may or may not take the records out and show the labels for all of these unless there's something unique about them. Not really. I guess there were. I said it did come with a lyric sheet, I think. I see a lyric sheet in here. Well, I'm going to end up fumbling around and doing this anyway. Yeah, there is a lyric sheet, but it's not. I actually think what happened was the record. This inner sleeve is not in the greatest shape, so probably what I hope not to destroy this by taking it out. But yeah, that's what happened here. This inner sleeve is not in the greatest shape, so it's going to be challenging to put this one back. I might do that later. But anyway, there's the original inner sleeve with the lyrics printed. Nothing really spectacular. As you can see, it's not in the greatest of shape at all. In fact, it's torn everywhere, so I probably need to get a new, just get a decent inner sleeve for that one. To be honest, the record's not in the greatest of shape. It's got a lot of surface noise, and it doesn't sound the best, but I didn't really, the first time I heard this album, I wasn't really all that into it. It was after several listens that it really kind of grew on me, but if you like that classic 80s power pop sound, these songs are really catchy, and you listen to them now and you think, based upon the other kind of stuff that was coming out back in that time frame, it is kind of surprising that this band didn't really take off and make it bigger than they did. I believe that they've played local shows for decades, and I think just recently the lead member of the group passed away last year, which is kind of sad. But it sounds like the band had a very loyal following and were very popular in the Chicagoland area for decades. All right, so staying in that area, we've got, this was a band I had never heard of. I saw this album out in the wild and thought, that looks pretty interesting. And the first thing that drew my attention to it was the producer. It was produced by Tom Werman for Julia's Music, and Tom Werman was a producer of a lot of quality hard rock albums, and we'll see his name again here later on. In fact, did Tom Werman might have produced the Off-Broadway. Yes. Yeah. Tom Werman produced the Off-Broadway as well. But this is the Bees, B-Z-Z, the Bees, with the album Get Up. Some more harder, a couple of songs on this album are more traditional hard rock. Another interesting thing about this is, I'm not sure which one it is. I think it's him right there. I think that's him. But I believe that is Stephen Riley, who would go on and play drums in Wasp and some other metal projects. He's unfortunately not with us any longer either. But the lead-off track on this album, Get Up, Get Angry, that's a pretty good hard rockin' number. But the rest of the album is kind of straddles that area of melodic hard rock and some power pop. They did a video for American Bandstand. They were on that back in the 80s. This album came out in 82. But if you go on YouTube, you can find them on American Bandstand. Again, this album is on Atlantic also. Or no, this is on Epic. I don't think it has a lyric sheet. No, there's no lyric sheet. And it's just the regular Epic label. And again, because this inner liner is not the best, I'm not going to take it off. But anyway, the Bees, I don't know if they released, how many albums they released. They didn't last very long. But pretty interesting. I had never seen it before, and wasn't very expensive at all, just a few bucks. I consider that kind of a gem find. And then finally, we have another band from that area. This one is on 360 Records, so I'll get that out and show it to you because I'm not familiar with that label. I was never familiar with this band either. I was familiar with the producer, Gary Luizzo, because he is associated with some of the early Styx recordings from the Wood and Nickel days. So this is a band that plays kind of more that power pop, melodic hard rock. This is The Kind, not to be confused with The Kinks, that kind of, you might think that when you saw this and glanced at it, you might think it was a Kinks album, but this is The Kind. There's the guys in the band, and like I said, we'll get this out because it's on a label that I'm not real familiar with. 360, and they play, again, kind of your traditional harder edged power pop. There's both sides. Record's in really good shape. Again, another band that I had never heard of. Oddly enough, I spent some time living in the Chicagoland area, but that was back in the early 90s, and a decade after these albums came out. But surprised that I've never really heard of either of these three bands. So again, kind of more harder edged power pop, hard rock, guitar driven. If you like that type of thing, there's another album that if you see it out there, I would suggest you pick it up. And then I saw this one and never heard of this band. They were a Virginia-based band. They're called The States. I was originally drawn to the album art. I just think it's pretty cool. It's like a city scene with the arena. I don't know if that's like an arena. It's a big snare drum, the microphone, the amplifier guitar, or the amplifier fuel station. Looks pretty neat. There's the band. They look more like they might be like, if you like Supertramp and that kind of thing. But this was on the Chrysalis label. Again, I think we all know what the Chrysalis label looks like. And I don't believe, I can't remember if there's a lyric sleeve. Yeah, there's no lyrics on this inner liner. But I've got it out. I might as well show it. It's the Chrysalis label. Everybody knows what that looks like. This is kind of, again, your more power pop, melodic rock, a lot of layered vocals and that kind of thing going on here. I wouldn't say that this is anything groundbreaking. I mean, if you see this somewhere and it's inexpensive, it's probably worth picking up just to have another album in your collection. But I wouldn't break the bank for it. It's not really rare or anything like that. Just one that I had never seen before, and we'll give it a chance. And there are a couple good tracks on it. This band was, from the research I did on them, I couldn't find much, but from the Virginia area that they were from, they were pretty popular around there and played pretty regular weekend shows at different clubs. And I think there's a Facebook page about them. There's not much else to find, really, but if you want to dig a little bit into this band, you can do that on Facebook. Again, that's The States, self-titled, on Chrysalis from what was it? I think it says on here somewhere. 1979? 1979. So kind of, not a couple years before the other three that I've showed you. All right, moving on. Okay, now we're going to move on to some. These are not really power pop. I've got some hard rock in here, classic rock. These are just albums, again, that I've found that that drew my attention, the bands I had never heard of. I'm ashamed I didn't really know of this band. I think I might have maybe heard about them once or twice, but I'm always looking at things on albums that I can recognize. And the first thing that drew my attention on here was that I saw that Jerry Shirley was a co-writer of one of the songs. And Jerry Shirley is one of my favorite underrated drummers. He played in Humble Pie mostly, and then in Fastway. And he hasn't done a whole lot of other stuff, but I just always thought that Jerry Shirley laid down a really good, solid hard rock, boogie rock groove. And this band is called Natural Gas. And along with Jerry Shirley, it has, the guy, I want to say it was, I think Joey Molland. I think it was Joey Molland. I should know this, but I wasn't a big fan of the band he came from. I don't have any of their albums, and I've always known who they were, but I just wasn't a big fan, even though I should have been. Came from the band Badfinger, and Badfinger was kind of touted to be the next Beatles, honestly, and they never really did that. They had a few big hits, and probably a band whose catalog I would enjoy if I got into them more, but I didn't. But anyway, the point being, it was kind of like a super group of sorts, comprised of Joey Molland, Mark Clark, then Jerry Shirley, and a guy named Peter Wood. And again, it's Natural Gas, and it's got some good solid hard rock boogie kind of stuff on there. Nothing really groundbreaking or super original, but just if you like the mid '70s boogie rock, like Humble Pie, if you liked Badfinger, this is probably a little bit harder rocking than what Badfinger was known for. Then you would probably get into this. We get a self-titled Natural Gas. I was going to show the label because I had never heard of it. And again, to get the original lyric sheet. It's in decent shape. It's on Private Stock Records. There's the label. Got the same on each side. In pretty good shape. Not bad for as old as it is. It's plays very well, and like I said, it's got some really good boogie rock, guitar-driven kind of songs. If you like '70s hard rock, this would be right up your alley. All right, moving on. This was a band, again, I never heard of this band. But let's do a little back story on it. This album came out in 1978. 1978, that's important, okay? 1978. I believe this band was from somewhere in Texas. But the band is called The Werewolves. Self-titled. There's at least one other release after this that if I find that out there, I'm going to grab it because I've streamed it and it sounds pretty good. But this is a band. When you look at them, you kind of expect they would not. They kind of look like they look like what a boy band in '78 might have looked like. But what you're going to get here is some blues-based hard rock that honestly. The track Hollywood Millionaire. Check that out, listen to that, and tell me if that doesn't sound like, if you didn't know better, you'd think you were listening to the Black Crowes, who came many years after this 1978 release. So, it'd be interesting to talk to the Robinson boys and see if they were ever into this band, because it sounds a lot like that. So, the rest of the album doesn't have that entire sound, but there is some interesting stuff. It's on the RCA label, by the way. There's some good stuff on here. You know, the band didn't make it, obviously, but really some really good tracks on here. The Flesh Express, I think that's the lead-off track. Heaven Help Me. The Hollywood Millionaire is a great song. And again, the similarities to like the Black Crowes are phenomenal. And I think that song itself was worth the price of the album. Didn't pick it up for very much. But again, a band I had never heard of, and I'd never seen this record before until I found it in the shop I bought it at, and thought it was a pretty good find for not a few bucks. All right, here a band that's, you know, I've never seen this album out. I've always seen either their greatest hits or the album that preceded this, but this record I have not seen out in the wild. It is from 1978, and it's a band. It's a one-hit wonder band. Everyone kind of knows their big radio hit was Black Betty, and the band is Ram Jam, and this is their second album, Portrait of the Artist as a Young Ram. This is a pretty interesting album art cover there. There's the back. Again, this was on Epic, so the label doesn't look anything spectacular, and I don't believe there's a lyric sheet. It's just a plain paper label. But this Ram Jam, aside from everyone knows Black Betty, or most of us have heard Black Betty, but this is a really hard rocking album, and a lot of hard rock enthusiasts will rank this album right up there with anything that was released in the late 70s as far as the level of heaviness and intensity. And that's the interesting thing about this. It's a shame that they didn't really do much after this album, because it is a pretty heavy, hard rocking album. And just the fact that you don't see it very often, I thought it was a really a gem find for me. Moving on to this one. So I'm gonna show this one here because I've never seen this particular release out in the wild. I own their previous two releases, which were more of a kind of a modern 80s Southern rock sound. And the band is Doc Holliday. This album is called Modern Medicine. This one was released in 83 on A&M Records. And it's more of a traditional hard rock, melodic metal kind of sound. I'm not even sure. I know at least a couple of these guys were original members of the band. Again, I'm not I'm not an expert by any stretch of the means on this band. The label, no lyrics on the label, and the traditional classic A&M logo. We all know what A&M Records look like. But yeah, you know, I kind of like, you know, I liked their sound as a Southern rock band. But you know, I like AOR styled melodic hard rock from the 80s. And this fits the bill. Is it a great album? No. But is it a decent listen? Absolutely. And for, again, not a few dollars, I thought it would be nice to, at least now I've rounded out my collection. As far as I know, those are the only 3 releases from the band. But yeah, the other 2 releases before that were more kind of in the vein of maybe 80s Molly Hatchet, 38 Special kind of Southern flavored hard rock. But this one is more AOR, traditional hard rock. All right, moving on to this is a band called Broken Homes. I had never heard of them, but according to the album cover, there's the guys in the band. This one is on MCA Records. It was released in 1980. It was in the 80s, I believe. I can't see anything. And the printing on here is so small. Okay. Does have a lyric sheet. Is there no lyric sheet on here either. 1980, yeah. Yeah, 1980 on MCA. This was a band that was, I want to say that they originated somewhere in, I wanted to say like the eastern states, like somewhere maybe around Virginia. But then they kind of relocated and went out to LA, and were out in LA when this album was released. And this was kind of released about the same time that the LA metal scene was exploding. And this was not metal at all, but it had a little melodic hard rock edge to it. Yet it also kind of had a Midwestern sense of like Midwestern roots, not roots sounding rock, but just kind of that type of attitude of like, you know, Midwestern blue collar kind of sound. You can't really see the back of the album cover real well, but this is a really good record. Some really good songwriting on here. In Another Land leads it off. An L.A. Rain, that's a great track. And I think that might have been a video. Not sure. But anyway, this is an album the research I've done on it, a lot of people who own this, have this, and like this album identify this as kind of a lost classic, a lost gem of the 80s. I don't disagree at all, so I'm showing it, and I'm glad I picked it up because it has got some really good tunes on it. And again, hard to classify, but if you like hard rock, you probably dig this. And the band didn't make it. I think this is maybe probably the only album that they did release. Or again, I'd never heard of them or seen them before I saw that in the bins and picked it up and was really glad I did. All right, another one. Again, something that drew my attention to this was the supporting cast. When I see Tom Krausier Jr., who is the brother of Juan Krausier of Rat, and then Bobby Blotzer on drums on this, I thought, okay. And then it was produced by Dieter Dierks, who is a famous German producer associated with Scorpions. I thought, all right, this is probably going to be pretty good. And this is Vic Verjeet with an album Down to the Bone. Anybody flashing the Flying V guitar is probably going to rock a little bit. This is on the EMI, Capital EMI label. It was from 19... I really hate that I can't see anything. I want to say sometime in the early 80s. Maybe... it doesn't say. 81? 1981. So again, this was coming out kind of around the same time that LA metal explosion was occurring, and Blotzer and was making his impact with Rat. But this Vic Verjeet was in a band, a Swedish hard rock band called Toad, and I can't remember if I've ever seen any of their albums out in the wild or not. But if I do, I'm going to snatch them up because they were kind of a lesser known a hard rock band from Europe, and this was their guitarist. And this is, I want to say he's released a couple of solo records. I'm not sure if this was the first or not, but pretty decent hard rock guitar oriented stuff on here. And again, if anything, just kind of interesting because of the supporting cast that you get. I always like to find albums that have players on it that were part of other bigger bands or other scenes or other things. You can kind of put a timeline together of everything that was going on back then. So that drew my attention to that. And then I'm going to close this one out with this. I had never seen this album before. Again, the album art is what drew my attention to it initially. But I turned it over. The band looks, like would be a hard rock and 80s kind of band. And then I noticed that it was produced again by Tom Werman for Julia's Music. And I thought, anything that Tom Werman gets his hands on is probably going to be halfway decent. But this is Stranger, and they were a band from Tampa, Florida. And I've seen this album showed a couple of times here. Actually, since I picked it up, I've seen a couple guys out there show this album. So this one is kind of known amongst some of the collectors. And they were a really big band back in the day down in the Tampa scene. Kind of, around the same time as, you had Savatage that kind of broke from back there. This is not nearly as heavy rocking as sound as that, but their guitar player, Ronnie Garvin, not the wrestler of the same name, this guy right here, Ronnie Garvin, this dude could play the guitar. Unfortunately, we've lost him. He took his own life somewhere back in the, I don't know if it was mid-90s, late 90s, but anyway, he was not doing well and left this world. But some of the other members of the band, oh, I'm not sure who. Greg Billings, I think that's his name. Yeah, I believe he was the singer, and I think he went on to do some other stuff in the Tampa area. But this band was legendary, according to the research I'd done in that Florida music scene. And they were this album. I don't know that it really captures the level of intensity that they probably had on stage. I'm sure this was a band that would have been fantastic to have seen live back in their day. But this is traditional kind of AOR and hard rock. I first thought that maybe they would be a little bit southern sounding, have a kind of a hard southern rock sound to them, kind of like 80s Molly Hatchet was kind of coming up with when they were being produced by Tom Werman. But I don't hear a lot of that in this. This is just kind of mostly AOR guitar driven hard rock, a little bit keyboard driven stuff in a couple of the tracks here, but some really good stuff. Jackie's So Bad, that was a single. Ready to Fight, that's a good tune. Ready to Fight. My Kind of Woman, Shakedown, good stuff on here. If you like AOR 80s hard rock, I think you'd enjoy this. And just kind of, again, a rare find. Don't see it very often. I do think it's been reissued on CD, and I don't know how hard this is to find, but again, I'd only seen it one time ever in a shop. I imagine if you go down to Florida and go into that area, you might see more copies of this. Yeah, very, very good stuff. I would highly recommend it if you see it out there. If you like hard rock, pick it up. All right, so those are just a few gems. I could consider most of those gem finds. Again, a gem to me is something that I'm not real familiar with, that's not super expensive, that I take it home, I listen to it, and I really enjoy it. And there's a new band that I've never heard of before, or just something that makes you feel good about the hobby. You go somewhere and you pick up something new and you really enjoy it, and it's like discovering a band for the first time. That's the true, I think, beauty of what music is. You can always find yourself immersing yourself into a group that you'd never heard of. They might have been around forever. And I'm going to mention that, plant that seed a little bit, because the next video I plan on doing is going to touch on that very thing, a band that I was not real familiar with back in the day. I knew who they were. I knew what their albums were. I just never listened to them. I wasn't a fan of them. And I picked up an album and did some more research and decided I needed to find out why this band wasn't on my radar back then, and why I never was a big fan. And now I can't believe I wasn't, because I love all their stuff. There's actually two bands that fit in that category. I'm going to do videos on them coming up. So that's what I've got kind of on the back burner, what I want to do going forward. In the meantime, I hope you'd enjoyed this. I hope you've enjoyed seeing some of these records. I hope maybe you'll see one of these out in the wild and pick it up, and you'll enjoy it also. Let me know in the comments what you think of these. Let me know if you've got any of these, or if you know any more about these bands that I don't. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to get more comments on my videos. I've got a small audience, I think, and I appreciate that. You guys that are return viewers, I appreciate your support. If you're new to the channel, do me a favor, hit the like and hit the subscribe. Get my numbers up a little bit. I'm trying to reach 500. If I reach 500, then I might try to even reach 1,000. But little by little, inch by inch. But again, I appreciate you stopping by, and I'll see you next time.